There is a feature that allows your users and yourself to work with their application and web APIs easier. My name is Andrew, and let's talk about that. First of all, I'm gonna say that that feature or that bug, that thing is not API specific. So you can work with, or language specific or framework specific. You can work with Python, you can work with C#, you can work with Fast API, you can work with Flask. So any web related module, any web related framework and web related language has that feature turned off by default. And if you turn it on, or if you enable that feature, it's going to have a lot of impact on your API and on your API usability. Here I have an example. I have my application from Fast API. I have two routes, users and my account. Users is just a route that returns a list of all the users from the database. And my account is just a route that returns my current account that I'm logged in as. Here I have my running server, and let's go to the browser so I can show you that localhost 8000 my account gives me my account, and users gives me all the users in my database. Yeah, so that's how it works. Nothing really cool here, everybody knows about it. But what is the problem with that web API? So as I said, each framework, each library, each language has that web API issue by default. And the issue is that we don't have a formatter for all of the responses that we send to our users. So here I have get users route. Here I have get my account route. The data that is being sent out from get my account and get users does not have a strict format that all the responses use. So what if we want to add a metadata? What if we want to add a separate field? How can we do that right now? What we can do is open a dictionary, close it here, and put our data as the list. And after that, let's put a status as our metadata. So what if I want to add status to my responses? What I can do is put a dictionary, status, data is going to be a list, and the response itself is going to be closed in a dictionary. And the same will go for my account. But what is the problem with that approach? So that can be a format for your responses. So you can format your responses yourself. So you can say status is 200, data is some sort of a data. The same is going to go here. So we are going to have data as that current dictionary, and status is going to be 200 as well. What is the problem with that approach? The problem is that if you want to put any additional fields in your data, you can just put them right here. So you can put any fields that you want inside of here and inside of here. And you may ask, oh, all right, so if I want to put any metadata that I want, I can just put it inside of my response. That's kind of obvious. But no, that's the problem. Here is the problem with that approach. The problem is that if I have 50 routes, so 50 separate functions or 50 separate methods, I'm going to have to put that status and is okay fields in all of my routes. Right now, my API is inconsistent. So if I go to my terminal and restart my application and go to my users, I can see that there is some kind of format. Status 200 is okay, true. But if I go to my account, I still see ID and username. Nothing changed here. And that is why we need some sort of separate tool that will format all of our responses. And how can we do that? The easiest thing to do is get a middleware. So you should never put your metadata inside of your responses just like that. So you should never put your metadata that does not relate to your route inside of the route response, inside of the return statement. What we can do instead is just return a list. So I'm gonna return it as it was returned before that, and return a dictionary in here. So we don't put any metadata or any formatting in our routes. Why is that? Because we don't want to copy the same format over and over again. But instead of that, we can create a middleware. So app.middleware from HTTP, and put a function, async def, HTTP middleware that has our response, and do something with our response. And that's the most basic approach, because almost every framework has a middleware. Almost every web framework has a middleware. So you can do that in any web framework. So what you're doing is something like response from content is something. But I'm going to show you another way of how to do that in Fast API, because we are working with Fast API and there is a better way of doing that. So you can do HTTP middleware in almost any web framework, in almost any module. That's the basic approach of doing that. But if you have something like Fast API, what you can do is create a custom response. Custom custom response. And I'm always doing that in Django, Flask, or Fast API because all of them support that thing. So if you're working with Python, custom response is better in my opinion. So what we're saying in our Fast API object creation is we're saying default response class is custom response. So each route that we have here is going to use that custom response. Custom response is going to inherit from fastapi.responses.json response. And here we have function called render. And once again, it's going to be different for each framework, but typically what you're going to have is something like a response with the function render or some other function that is going to return your raw data. So render function is called when we want to return our response to the user. What I'm going to do here is return super from render. And super from render is a function that is going to call JSON response render. So here it is. As you can see, just JSON dumps from content and all the stuff. So we just serialize our Python data to JSON. Nothing complicated here. But if we think about it, what we can do inside of our super render here is put not just the content that is provided here, because content is the thing that we return. So that is going to be our content. That is going to be our content. That is going to be our content. So we return something and that is our content. But instead of just putting raw content here, I can open up a dictionary and do something like data is content. And then let's add a status as 200. Now, if I run my program, I need to run it with my terminal. I did not create a configuration for that. So let's run our program. And if I go to my account, I refresh my page, what you can see here, data is ID. So data is a dictionary with ID and username, and we have status 200. I want to remind you that I did not put anything inside of my get my account or get users. The same will go for users. Now we have data and status, and our API has a structure because we have data, status. We have two fields that represent our data and represent the status of something. So the status of response, for example. If we have an error, we're going to have response as 400. If we're going to have everything all right, so if we're going to have something successfully done, then we're going to have our response status as 200. Kind of like that. We can say something like version and put our API version in here. 110. Something like that. Then stop our application, run it again, refresh it, and we have our version here. So as you can see, we can put a lot of stuff in our custom response. But why do we need it? Once again, because if we have a structure in our APIs and the structure is not being copied from one route to another, that's just very, very bad. If you copy your structure, then we can put any data that we wish and return it. We're still going to have to follow the same structure because we have that custom response that returns a render from our custom dictionary. So the content in our case can be anything. If I return something like hello, I should not be worried about how my users are going to intercept that hello. But what I'm worried about is, I'm not worried about nothing because I know that my data is going to be hello, and data represents our data that is being returned from the application. I know that we have version, I know that we have our structure. And the users are not going to struggle with the way our API is represented because we have a strict schema in our web API and it's being achieved with that custom response. Because once again, custom response is being used in order to render our data, and we put our dictionary with all the fields that we need inside of here. If you're working with some other application, you can put a middleware that gets your response and somehow updates its body or updates its content. Or you can just create a custom response class, as I do it with Django, with Fast API, with Flask, and with other frameworks in Python. So you can use any of the methods, you can use a middleware, you can use a custom response, you can use a function, you can use your own class, anything. But be sure not to copy your formatting from one function to another. I've seen a lot of people do it, and that's just stupid because you copy your code, you may run into a lot of problems when you forget to do it in one function or forget to do it in 2, 3 functions or mess something up, or you want to add another field and you need to copy it all over again. So don't do that. Instead of that, have something like a custom response that allows you to format each request without ever formatting the data that you return. My name is Andrew, thank you for watching, subscribe to my channel, leave a like, leave a comment, and bye bye.